Boys and girls, I'm Mr. Chow. Please have a look at the yellow box here on the screen. In this video clip, you will learn one of the three processes of heat transfer, which is conduction, one factor affecting conduction, and three examples of application of conduction. The screen showing up to you here is exactly the same as your book. So turn to page 102 now. Prepare yourself also with a pen and write down the aim shown here, anywhere on page 102. Press the pause button now to stop this video for 30 seconds. First of all, let us have a look at the definition, that is the meaning of heat transfer. Heat transfer. Energy can be transferred from one place to another. For example, you feel hot when you sit near a fire. This is because thermal energy is transferred from the fire to you. This transfer of thermal energy is called heat transfer. So, the definition, the meaning of heat transfer is the transfer of thermal energy from one place to another. Now let us have a look at one of the three processes of heat transfer. It is called conduction. First of all, we will have a look at an experiment or practical. The practical 5.6 here is a demonstration experiment of conduction along a copper rod. I'm going to show you a video of this experiment soon, but I would like to draw your attention. I would like to ask you to look at the aims, apparatuses and materials used, and the two steps of the experiment first, so that you know what is going to be done and be able to expect for certain results. Step 1. Your teacher will set up the apparatuses as shown. 3 drawing pins A, B, and C are stuck along the copper rod using roughly equal amount of wax. You should be able to know the reason why there is a need to use an equal or the same amount of wax. As I'm certain you remember from the skill of scientific investigation that we have been learning together at the beginning of the year, that a number of variables in this experiment have to be kept constant, kept the same. For example, the amount of wax here should be kept the same to make sure that a fair test can be done. We should be only changing one thing, one variable. And in this experiment, it is the distance between the drawing pin and the Bunsen flame, the fire. Step 2. Heat one of the rod with a Bunsen burner. Which drawing pin falls first? Which drawing pin falls last? Now let's have a look.
In this practical, we will study the transfer of heat by conduction in a copper rod. Evenly coat one end of a copper rod with some wax. Stick metal drawing pins at regular intervals along the coating. Heat the other end of the rod with a Bunsen burner. Observe what happens to the pins. How is energy transferred along the rod?
Answer the question now. Press the pause button now to stop this video for 10 seconds. Now here is the answer. Hitch one end of the rod with a Bunsen burner. Which drawing pin falls first? Which drawing pin falls last? Drawing pin C falls first. Drawing pin A falls last. Let us continue. Conduction may occur within an object or between two objects in contact. In contact, please underline. It is a main point. It must be in contact. In practical 5.6, thermal energy is first transferred from the hot side of the copper rod to the cold end, and then from the copper rod to the wax. A summary to what we have been talking about is here. Thermal energy can be transferred from the hotter part of an object to the colder part of the object, or from a hotter object to a colder object in contact. This type of heat transfer is called conduction. Now, let's move on to the next aim of this video lesson. We will discuss one factor affecting conduction. The factor is different materials. Again, I will show you a video of the experiment soon after we have a look at the aims, apparatuses, and material used, and the two steps of the experiment first, so that you know what is going to be done and be able to expect for certain results. Step 1. Put an iron rod, a copper rod, a glass rod, and a wooden rod into a beaker of hot water. Feel the ends of the rods after a minute. A. Which rods become warm? B. What can you tell from the result? Conduction occurs faster in the rod than in the rod. Well, we will see. Now, let us have a look.
Now we will investigate what kind of solid conducts heat faster. Put a wooden rod, an iron rod, a copper rod, and a glass rod into a beaker of hot water. Feel the ends of the rods to find out which rod gets hot first. Which material conducts heat the fastest?
Answer the question now. Press the pause button now to stop this video for 10 seconds. Now here are the answers. Which rod become warm? The copper rod and the iron rod. What can you tell from the results? Conduction occurs faster in the copper and iron rods than in the glass and wooden rod. Practical 5.7 shows that conduction occurs faster in some materials. These materials are good conductors. Materials in which conduction occurs slowly are poor conductors or good insulators. Conduction can occur in solid, liquids, and gases. In general, metals such as silver, copper, and iron are good conductors. Non-metals such as glass, wood, water, and air are good insulators. Now we have a very brief summary. Metals are good conductors. Non-metals are good insulators. Now, we will move on to the last aim of this video lesson. We will discuss 3 examples of application of conduction. Applications of conduction and insulation. A. Cooking pots. Pots are usually made of metal so that they quickly transfer thermal energy from the stove to the food. Their handles are usually made of insulators like plastic or wood. Therefore, we can hold the handles without getting burnt. Plastic or wood are good insulators, and we are using this science information to make our life better. This is one of the aims of science. Every one of you are our future in science. You have to be able to use the knowledge you learn to solve problems, especially unfamiliar ones, in order to survive in this highly competitive future world. B. Food containers. Foam is a good insulator. It is commonly used to make food containers. Foam containers keep food hot, and we can hold them without getting burned. Well, foam is a good insulator because there are lots of air bubbles inside the expanded plastic. And air is a good insulator, which is the reason why foam is a good insulator too. C. Hair and clothes. Some animals are covered with fur or feathers. The fur and feathers trap air. Since air is a good insulator, it conducts thermal energy away from the animal body very slowly. This helps the animal to stay warm. So it is again that we make use of the good insulator of air to make furry coats that helps insulate our body so that we can stay warm in cold places.
Now let us have a summary before the end of the video clip lesson. You have learned first one of the 3 processes of heat transfer, that is conduction. Thermal energy can be transferred from the hotter part of an object to the colder part of the object, or from a hotter object to a colder object in contact. This type of heat transfer is called conduction. The second thing that you have learned is one factor affecting conduction. That is different materials. How do different materials differ in their speed of conduction? We learned that metals are good conductors and bad insulators, and that non-metals are bad conductors and good insulators. Lastly, 3 examples of application of conduction. Cooking pots, foamy food containers, hair and clothes. Now please do the following homework. The homework can be found attached to your e-class notice titled 5.2 Energy Transfer Conduction. Boys and girls, see you around.